This fic may include mentions of child abuse, animal abuse, trauma, and graphic depictions of violence. Hope you enjoy. On to the story. Cat? Nope, it's a child! Rewrite of Cat? Child? By Anime Hair Colors on AO3. Read by Lily6645. Chapter 15. The USJ. Summary. Hun, I made myself sad. Basically, humor happens, then angst. I mean, it's the USJ, so what you expect, lol. On the bus to the USJ, Deku sat next to Shinso, hugging him around the middle. Hitoshi, do you think I should tell him? After the field trip, I mean, Deku asked quietly. They had been talking about what had happened the day before.
I think you should. It's obviously bothering you, but I'll support you either way.
Deku nodded and cuddled closer to him. Then a new voice interrupted them.
I tend to say what's on my mind. Ribbit, how long have you been together?
Since middle school. Well, Hitoshi was in middle school. I was privately tutored, Deku said before Hitoshi could reply. Hitoshi choked on his own spit and then added,
Maybe if you went to a real school, you would have known that she meant that we were dating.
We are? Deku just looked confused. Hitoshi's heart couldn't take this from the boy he had a crush on. Then Deku continued, What does dating mean again? The frog girl looked like she was trying very hard not to laugh.
My bad, Ribbit.
How do you not know what dating is?
A blonde boy with electric hair asked. Deku shrugged. Hitoshi, still embarrassed, replied for him,
because he has the cultural knowledge of a cat, and this is the first time he's been to real school. Okay, but didn't he figure it out from the internet?
The electric boy asked.
Oh, that? I discovered that a few months ago, and have only really used it to discover laws of quirk usage and pre-quirk era urban cat legends, Deku said. The rest of the class, most of whom had some kind of phone/computer addiction, stared at him with a mixture of impressed awe and abject horror.
Well, that explains why you're such a wuss, sheltered brat,
Bakugo said.
But what's your excuse for having no friends?
The boy with the lightning hair said. He'd obviously struck a nerve as Bakugo started screaming about how
I have plenty of friends extra.
Sparky's comment upset Bakugo more than he would like to admit, since all of his friends before UA had only been interested in hanging out with him since he was a shoo-in for hero school, and thought he'd remember them once he went pro or something. He wouldn't, but whatever. Tuning out Bakugo's screaming, Kirishima turned to Midoriya.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you,
Kirishima said. Midoriya looked rather nervous. Kirishima wasn't sure why.
About what?
Midoriya asked. Kirishima remembered Aizawa didn't want people knowing about him and Midoriya living with him. Spoke in a low voice.
Aizawa said you were the one who picked out the stuff for, the room,
Kirishima said a bit nervously.
Yeah, I did,
Midoriya said, sounding like a mix of sheepish and anxious.
How did you know about all the stuff, I mean?
Kirishima asked, biting his lip. Midoriya bit his lip. He looked really anxious. Kirishima was genuinely worried. the other boy would run from him. Not that there was anywhere to go. However, after a moment, he answered, "I'll tell you after the field trip," Midoriya said. Kirishima nodded and gave a small smile.
"Alrighty,"
he said. Then he went to chat with Bakugo. The USJ did not go as planned. Deku ended up in the mountain zone along with Kirishima and Yaoyorozu. They were fighting a large group of villains, but they were regular thugs, so Deku didn't use his quirk for the time being, wanting to save it for the powerful villains in the plaza.
"Can you do that teleporting thing from before?"
Kirishima yelled. The electric boy was clearly panicking.
"Do you want me to get quirk exhaustion?"
Dekuru snapped.
"Trust me, you don't. When I use my quirk too much, it forces me to transform into a tiny kitten to recharge my body, a bit like your away mode."
"Well, you didn't get quirk exhaustion when you turned into the Cheshire Cat."
"Look, guys, we need to focus. Midoriya, come over here,"
Yamomo said. Deku did as he was told, and was covered by a sheet of insulation, which allowed Kaminari to let loose a large amount of electricity. Unfortunately, the boy had his brain fried by electricity at this point, so was helpless when another electric user came up from the ground and took him hostage. Deku was far too worried for his friend, who was presumably still fighting in the plaza, so he turned into a ball-tailed cat and swiftly hit the man upside the head, knocking him out before turning back into a Neko.
"Good, I think that takes care of that. Now I think we should try to make our way to the exit,"
Yaoyorozu said.
"You do that. I'm much more worried about the imminent threat against the teachers and those in the main group."
In reality, there is a surprising number of similarities between a clutter of cats and a group of humans. A group of feral cats would usually have the big, strong ones, and those would usually be the most aggressive in a group, always looking to fight. The more vulnerable cats, usually the mothers with their kittens, would be tucked away at the center of the group with the most protection. Even still, the mother cat would be the most dedicated and vicious. In this case, the man with the hands on his body and the purple smoky one were the two mother cats, the most to lose, and the most dedicated to their cause. Unlike cats, though, the villains would not be looking to protect their young, but to destroy others.
"All right, if you say so,"
Yaoyorozu said, obviously not thinking it was a good idea, but she knew they didn't have time to argue. With that, Deku ran to the main plaza just in time to see his father, Aizawa, get his face smashed into the concrete. Deku saw red. He transformed into a creature he never thought he'd use. Akasha. His body was set aflame, yet it didn't hurt him. He walked towards the inhuman creature because, yes, Deku could tell it wasn't human. It was made of human, but seemed half corpse. That was something he could use.
"Nomu, get the flaming brat,"
the hand villain said. Fortunately, while Deku wasn't able to control the creature completely, like a regular corpse, he had enough of a hold over its body to hold it in place. While it was immobilized, he began to eat it. The hand villain was angry and was probably about to attack Deku himself. Fortunately, another of his classmates, the one with ice and fire, froze the villain before he could do anything. Meanwhile, he continued eating. He probably didn't have the stomach capacity to eat the whole thing. However, it seemed that eating its brain was enough to shut it down. It took long enough that it was only due to training with Aizawa that he didn't switch back into a kitten, and was able to change back into his Neko form. While everyone was distracted thinking they had won, Kirigiri made a move, making a portal right underneath Bakugo, teleporting him to the other side of the room.
You want to die, stupid villain, huh?
Bakugo screamed, running over to him. Unfortunately, the damage was done. Kirigiri was able to warp Shigaraki into the fire zone for a short time, which was enough to melt the villain. The rest of Dekuru's classmates tried to fight Kirigiri, but it was hopeless, and Dekuru knew without the ability to transform into something reasonably powerful, he'd just get in the way. So he checked Aizawa's vitals. Just as he found himself relieved that Aizawa was still very much alive, Kirigiri was warped back, fully thawed. He was scratching his neck.
Kids these days are amazing. We have to go. The pros are on their way. But we'll be a laughingstock if we don't kill at least one kid,
he said, rushing, hand outreached towards Ichiro! Dekuru yelled, running as fast as his legs would carry him. He barely made it in time, planting his feet, arms outstretched in a position that can only be described as self-sacrificing and protective, as Shigaraki's hand collided with his chest, right over his heart. His body started dissolving immediately. Ichiro watched from behind him, frozen. Dekuru had to resist the urge to scream in pain. Even still, tears rolled down his face, and his body shook with the urge to flee, to do anything to get away from the scarring pain. But no, he had to protect his brother. After only a couple seconds that felt like eternity for Dekuru, the feeling stopped. At least, it didn't get worse. Shigaraki's hand was still pressed over his partially dissolved ribs, maybe a few inches from his heart, but his quirk wasn't activated anymore. He saw the villain turn around, removing his hand, and turning to his father, who had one eye open, the other covered in blood.
You really are so cool, Eraserhead,
Dekuru heard the villain say. Then there was a gunshot, and everything went foggy and white. Then black, as his eyes closed and he lost consciousness. That is the end of chapter 15. On to the next chapter. Chapter 16. Awake. Summary. Aftermath of USJ. When Aizawa awoke, it was dark. Why was it dark? He tried to reach for his phone on the bedside table, but his body wouldn't move. He began to panic and realized that his eyes were forced closed. Where was he? Had he been kidnapped? What about his husband? His kit? The pale hand disintegrating flesh right above Dekuru's heart. Aizawa struggled to keep one eye open, knowing if he didn't, then a child, his kit, would die. His brain was fuzzy and eyelids almost impossibly heavy, but he kept it up till the villain removed his hand and began walking towards him,
before being shot in both legs, and he and the purple villain disappeared. Joda, calm down. You're safe now.
Hasashi.
Aizawa.
Who was that? Wait, it's Kirishima. He's probably worried. Come on, Shota. Time to be an adult. Aizawa forced himself to calm down.
Sorry about that, kiddo. How's...
Not Dekoru. Kirishima isn't supposed to know that name. What's the kid's first name again? Aizawa was on so many painkillers, he could barely think.
Midoriya, he's...
Kirishima's voice cut off, and Aizawa could hear him begin to sob.
Is he alive?
Please let him be alive.
He's in a coma. He should be waking up soon. But, well, we just don't know. He's stable, at least. Shinso is staying with him now.
Hasashi explained.
Okay. How about the others? The rest of the students? 13? Aside from Izuku, the worst injury was yours,
Hasashi said.
Okay, that's good,
Aizawa said, and they moved on to lighter topics. Midoriya hadn't woken up yet. A full day after Aizawa had returned to class. In fact, he didn't wake up till another day had passed. Once he heard the news in the form of a text from Aizawa, he ran to his bedside and couldn't stop himself from blurting out the question that had been bothering him for the entire time Midoriya had been asleep.
Why did you do it?
Huh? Midoriya asked, looking almost panicked.
Why did you save me? I thought you didn't like me, but then you say you want me in your home and are willing to sacrifice yourself for me, even though you avoid me at all costs. Why?
Kirishima was crying now. He remembered catching Midoriya after he'd fallen unconscious, getting an up-close look at the wound he'd taken for him. All he could think of was why had he done it? Run to him, shouted his name, and taking that blow, a blow that nearly killed him. Why? Midoriya hesitated, then glanced at Aizawa, who put a hand on his shoulder. Midoriya took a deep breath, then spoke in a soft voice. I think it's time I tell you the truth. That is the end of chapter 16 of Cat? Nope, it's a child. Rewrite of Cat Child? By Anime Hair Colors on AO3. If you like this, please go support the original author. Link in the description below. Just so you all know, I am trying out YouTube memberships, in case if you want to try it out as well. On another note, there's only one more chapter of this fic left. Hope you enjoyed it, 'cause I definitely did. Hope you have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you are in. Bye, kittens and heroes.